are a couple of ways that you can communicate during the webinar. So one is by clicking on the question mark button at the top right hand side of your screen. What you'll be able to do then is ask a question of my team that's also here, the Level 2 Learning Programs team, who will do their utmost to answer all the questions that we get throughout the presentation. And you can also look at a couple of handouts that we've uploaded for you. So one of them is the Priority Learning Unit booklet. So some of you may have downloaded that for the purpose of this webinar. So we've included it there as well for you, and also a booklet that we're going to work through as we go through the presentation. We did do the poll, and I think it clicked up on your screen, so most of you got to answer that. So that was just for us to gauge who we're talking to this evening, and the poll results showed that yes, some of you have had whole school cluster sessions with JCT, Junior Cycle for Teachers, but the majority of you haven't had any introduction yet to Junior Cycle, or indeed to the Level 2 Learning Programs. So you're really going to get that introduction this evening. You may have questions that are more pertinent to Junior Cycle as a whole, and you know, we will do our best to field those questions, but this evening is really about the Level 2 Learning Programs. Okay. So basically we're going to do the who, the what, the where, the why and the when of the L2LPs, or the Level 2 Learning Programs, and we're going to give you some next steps then. What can you do back in school? Which parts of the Level 2 Learning Programs might you be engaging with, and so on. So we're going to refer to a few key documents this evening. So the first one is the Level 2 Learning Programs. The guidelines for these. You can find these at www.curriculumonline.ie or our own website, which is www.jct.ie. And there's this specific section on the website for L2LPs. And on that section you will find any presentations that we have given in CPDs in schools, and the booklets that we've used, which contain some useful templates. And you'll also find the links to these key documents. We're going to refer to the guidelines for post-primary schools supporting students with special educational needs in mainstream schools, in particular those guidelines and Circular 0014/2017. So we're going to host our second poll now, and it's going to invite you to share with us where you're teaching, what is your current educational context. So again, this will pop up on the screen if you wouldn't mind taking a few moments. I must actually introduce myself again because we were muted at the start, just so you know who you're listening to. I may have met some of you before. My name is Sarah Nally and I'm the team leader for the Level 2 Learning Programs. And I do have a number of colleagues here in the background who are associates on the Level 2 team, working very hard here, I must say, so answering your questions. That's great. Lovely. It's great to see that we're talking with the majority of teachers from post-primary settings and a small number from special school settings as well. So please do ask your questions as we go through the presentation that relate to your particular context. We are aware, having been out since 2014 giving CPD on the Level 2 Learning Programs, that really schools are implementing them in lots of different ways, because all of our students with special educational needs are accessing the program in different ways. So we're going to hopefully give you an insight into how that's done in schools. So we do start with the vision of junior cycle, and we start with this on any CPD day that we're given. So the junior cycle is about placing students at the centre of their educational experience. It's now about enabling them to actively participate in their communities and in society, and to be resourceful and confident learners in all aspects and stages of their lives. So we often say for teachers that are working in special education, it's nothing new to us. We're used to having these expectations and these goals for our students with special educational needs. So the junior cycle certainly supports those students, and the introduction of the Level 2 learning programme certainly supports all of these goals from within the vision. The Level 2 learning programmes is really a skills-based, hands-on programme that does support students as they move forward, whether that's into future study or whether that's into working lives. And you'll see that when we look at some of the learning outcomes later on. So for some, this may be the first introduction of the structure of the junior cycle. So I'll give you a couple of seconds there to have a look at that framework. So the junior cycle is based on 8 principles. These are things like learning to learn, continuity, well-being, inclusive education. So this really is the ethos and the culture of the school, and as schools engage with the 8 principles, they're ensuring that they've a well-rounded, holistic school experience for all of their learners. There are then 24 statements of learning, and these 24 statements of learning provide a broad and balanced curriculum experience to their students or for their students. So when you have a look at the 24 statements of learning, you'll notice there are some communication and literacy statements, there are some numeracy statements, there are some sustainable living statements. So it's to provide a broad and balanced curriculum. There are also 8 key skills, and these are the activities, these are embedded in your lessons. So these are the skills that we're trying to enable in our students. So things like managing myself, using technology, working in groups, and these are all the active teaching methods. There's a really good section on the jct.ie website under the whole school site, and there's lots of videos there of those key skills in action. So I'd really suggest that's they're a great resource there to see some of the methodologies that you can use to encourage those key skills in your classrooms. The core of this framework diagram are the 8 principles, the 24 statements of learning and the key skills. They are the new curriculum. So schools are concentrating and exploring and embedding these principles, statements of learning and key skills in their practice. That becomes their new curriculum, and that's the broad and balanced curriculum that they're offering to their students. Principles, statements of learning and key skills can be mediated through these components in blue boxes. So we have the Level 2 learning programs, we have subjects, we have a new area of learning, it's not new now, but of the area of learning well-being, we've short courses, and then other learning experiences. So students can actually engage with all of those blue boxes if appropriate, if their needs dictate. The assessment and reporting procedures then have changed. So we now have more formative assessment for learning. We have classroom-based assessments for subjects and for short courses. We have ongoing assessment for the Level 2 learning programmes, but I will get into that in a little bit more detail later on. So what does that mean for our students with special educational needs? It could mean for some that they would actually be able to access more subjects because they're able to demonstrate their learning now more than once, more than that big exam at the end of the 3 years. So if we were to look at the National Framework of Qualifications, you can see that the subjects specifications are broadly aligned to level 3, and I've just seen there that bubble has moved and it's pointing to level 4. So apologies for that, it should be down at level 3. We then have the level 2 learning programmes, which are broadly aligned to the level 2 indicators. And the level 1 learning programmes have also been designed. These have been designed for students within the low to severe and profound range of general learning disabilities. So there are a number of schools piloting level 1 learning programmes, special schools and post-primary schools, and they will be then made available to schools at a later date. So in our aim to become truly inclusive schools, we take this key message from the guidelines for post-primary schools and how we support our students with special educational needs. And that is that every student should be taught a curriculum that is appropriate to his or her developmental level. So again, I referenced these documents earlier on in the presentation, 2 documents, the guidelines and Circular 0014/2017. So what does that mean? It's tough doing a webinar because we usually have activities, we'd have conversations and discussions which we can't do during this session. I suppose my question here would be how do you as a school enable that to happen at the moment, currently? And does the introduction of the level 2 learning programmes make that more achievable? Students, it's really important now that the level 2 learning programmes are there alongside the subjects at level 3, students can engage with level 2 and level 3. So there have been a few questions in relation to can a student do both? The answer is yes. And it's all about student-centred planning, and we will get on to that later on in the session. But yes, absolutely, they can engage with both content at level 2 and at level 3, depending on their ability. So what might that look like for a student? So for those of you who haven't engaged with CPD as yet, every student who has engaged with Junior Cycle will receive a Junior Cycle profile of achievement at the end of their Junior Cycle study. And that Junior Cycle profile of achievement, or JCPA, you might hear it being referred to, is going to document exactly what a student has done in relation to their Junior Cycle. So if, for example, Mary Kelly, the student, she has engaged with a number of subjects at level 3, so you can see the exam results up on the top left. She also engaged with priority learning units, which are part of the level 2 learning programmes. She completed the classroom-based assessments for English, and she also completed some of the classroom-based assessments for the short courses. Again, we'll explore these in more detail. There's also another a section there on other areas of learning. So a JCPA, or a Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement, is just that. It's a profile of what components of Junior Cycle a student has engaged with. Okay. So we're going to take a look at a short animation video in a moment, but we'd like to first gauge how familiar you are with the L2LPs. So we're going to pop up our third poll. If you could take a few moments to answer that question. Great, I can see, Sari, the results from that poll there. Most of you are somewhat familiar, so I hope this reaffirms some of the practices. We are aware that some schools may have, and teachers may have gone ahead and engaged with the Level 2 learning programmes despite having CPD, so I hope that this evening's session will reaffirm your practice. But there are a good number of you that have never been introduced to the Level 2 learning programmes as yet, so you're really going to take something from this session. And you can be informed then about whether the L2LPs are something that that your school will implement for a certain cohort of students. So we're going to take a look at a Powtoon video, and this Powtoon video is going to just give you a basic introduction into the Level 2 learning programmes and what constitutes as part of a Level 2 learning programme. There is an activity, a table in one of the handouts that we've uploaded where you can take notes or you can, I'm sure you're scribbling away on notepads as well. So as you're watching this video, you're going to hear who the L2LPs are for. You're going to be introduced to the names of the priority learning units. You're going to be told the names of 2 Level 2 short courses and where you can get more information on the L2LPs. Okay, brilliant. I often say at the end of that Powtoon when we're in schools doing CPD, they're very happy looking teachers at the end of that Powtoon. And you know, it may seem a little daunting and overwhelming when you're facing a brand new program, but in actual fact, once you download the PLU, the guidelines or the PLU booklets, the Priority Learning Unit booklets, and you actually take a look at some of the learning outcomes, it becomes less daunting. And more often than not, people actually, teachers on the ground, aren't faulting the program. They see it as very beneficial and meaningful to their students. The other thing I talk about when we show that video is the actual package there itself, the app that was used to create that. It's Powtoon, and it's very useful. It's a great introduction to animation, which I have used with my own students with SEN, and just to get them to have a play around with it, they can actually create their own short animation there. So if you haven't used it, I would recommend you taking a look at Powtoon. Okay, so basically we're going to tease out some of the things that you were introduced to through that Powtoon. So we're going to start with the who. Who are the Level 2 learning programs designed for? So they were designed for learners, for students that would be within the low, mild to high, moderate general learning disability cohort. So the special needs of these students would prevent them from accessing some or all of the subjects and short courses on offer at junior cycle that are broadly aligned to Level 3. So subjects at Level 3, if they're struggling with them, you could look towards the Level 2 learning programs and the PLUs within those programs. But we'll just tease that out a little bit more and just say it's not going to be for a huge number of students in your classrooms. We're talking about the students that would have a mild general learning disability and a moderate general learning disability, and even more particular than that, low, mild, high, moderate. So you're talking about a very small cohort of students within your schools and classrooms. This bubble here is the students that would be within the average range. So you can see the sizes there of the cohort that we're talking about. So based on that, based on it being a program for students with a mild, low, mild, high, moderate general learning disability, we are cognizant and we know ourselves that we have lots of students in our schools that would have special educational needs, some of which are coming up here. So physical disability, hearing impairment, visual impairment, emotional disturbance, moderate general learning disability. So you can see them all coming up here. Not all of these students are students that will have an input from the Level 2 learning programs or that would be engaging with the Level 2 learning programs. Yes, they have special educational needs, and yes, they will need support, but it might be for actually following the content from a Level 2 learning program. So all of these coming up in yellow are not necessarily students that would focus in on a Level 2 learning program because cognitively they are able to follow subjects at Level 3. As I mentioned previously, severe to profound general learning disability, these students might benefit from the Level 1 learning programs when they're made available. Okay, so what makes up a full Level 2 learning program or a Level 2 learning program? You've heard priority learning units a number of times now, or PLUs. Okay, so there are 5 of them. There are 2 short courses currently available on Curriculum Online, which is curriculumonline.ie, which is the NCCA's website, currently available to as Level 2 short courses. A student then is obviously going to be engaging with other areas of learning, and they will have access to the wellbeing program that your school has put in place. So they could have access to PE, to CSP, to SPHE, to any other wellbeing modules that your school is running. So let's just explore those priority learning units again in a little bit more detail. So we said there are 5 of them. We have communicating and literacy, numeracy, personal care, living in the community, and preparing for work. So you did see in the Powtoon there was, it said a minimum of 3 years. So it is envisaged that the level 2 learning programs will run alongside the junior cycle when subjects at level 3. So over a period of 3 years, students would engage with the 5 priority learning units. In the level 2 learning programs guidelines, it does state that each PLU should be given 250 hours, an approximate 250 hours, which suggests that you can't do this program in a year. If you have students that can do this program in a year, they shouldn't be doing the level 2 learning program. It also suggests there that maybe you have students in 2nd or 3rd year that you're thinking, can we get this program started with them? Yes, you absolutely can, but they might engage with all 5 priority learning units because of the time frame. 250 hours per PLU over 3 years equates to about 2.5 hours per PLU. So that just gives you an indication there as to how much time each PLU would require throughout the week. So we're just going to have a look at the PLUs in a little bit more detail. If you have a PLU booklet in front of you, it's a good time to have a look at that now, as we just explained the layout basically. If you don't have a PLU booklet, that's fine. You can download the one that we have added to the handout section for you to be able to print off when you go back into school. But basically we just want to explain how the PLUs or the priority learning units are laid out. So each priority learning unit has a number of learning outcomes, each priority learning unit has a number of elements. So the elements are listed down the left-hand side of a table, and then each element has a number of learning outcomes. Okay, now the box over here in the purple says students should experience all learning outcomes, but in order for a PLU to make it to the JCPA, the Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement, the profile that they receive at the end of their junior cycle, there must be, the majority of learning outcomes must be evidenced. Okay, now we're going to talk about assessment and whatnot in a couple of seconds. Basically, the majority of learning outcomes within each element has to have evidence to support that the student is able to do that learning outcome. So if we just have a look at this one here, we've got 6 learning outcomes within the speaking element. The majority is going to be 4. Okay, now you're not just going to pick the first 4, you're going to pick the 4 that are most pertinent to that student and his or her needs. Okay, so assessment of the priority learning units then, it is school-based. A portfolio of evidence will be created by students completing programs. So there isn't an exam at the end of the level 2 learning programs. It's ongoing formative assessment. Students are engaging with learning activities and learning intentions, working towards learning outcomes. And you, as the teachers on the ground, are allowing them demonstrate their learning in the best way that suits them. So if that's a photograph, if that's a video, an audio, then that's okay, and it's actually expected. And that all of this evidence will be stored and collated into a portfolio. And it's that then that teachers will use to judge and to assess whether a student has achieved that PLU. as long as the majority of learning outcomes within each element is there and has been evidenced. Okay, so it is based on, it is on the basis of achieved. A student will achieve a PLU if they have the majority of learning outcomes from each element within their portfolio of evidence. And the JCPA then will reflect on those PLUs that have been achieved. So if a student has engaged with numeracy and hasn't managed all of the learning outcomes, the majority of the learning outcomes, that PLU, that priority learning unit, will not be on the JCPA. It won't be on the Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement. So the Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement then becomes a celebration. It becomes a profile that shows how much a student has achieved. So as I just mentioned there, gathering evidence for the learning outcomes could be done through worksheets, through writing, through drawings, through pieces of art, through audio, through videos, diaries, role plays, presentations, through photographs. So lots of means and modes of representation for our students. Obviously, if you're collecting video and audio, you may have to go down the route of digital portfolios or electronic portfolios, e-portfolios. And again, on our website we have a few examples of e-portfolios that schools have used. And again, that's on jct.ie under the Level 2 Learning Programmes section. Usually the way that a portfolio is split up would be into the 5 priority learning units, and you may have a checklist at the front of that section. Those checklists are on our website, L2LPs, under assessment, and they're basically a checklist of the learning outcomes contained within each PLU that you can tick off and write in beside what the evidence is that's supporting that learning outcome. Schools may also use the planning tool to do that. We'll talk to you about the planning tool in a little while. So just a little bit on short courses then for Level 2 short courses. As I said, there are 2 available on Curriculum Online. They were actually developed by teachers on the ground, and the NCCA gave support then in gathering video evidence of students completing these 2 short courses. So we have a personal project, Caring for Animals, and CSI, Exploring Forensic Science. Both are very good. Being honest, I have ran the personal project, Caring for Animals one myself. The CSI one, I felt I needed to go and learn a little bit about forensic science myself, but both very exciting project-based short courses for students to work on and engage with. The guidelines for short courses state they should be given about 100 hours. So again, we tend to work our short courses over a year. It's about 2.5 hours again per short course. There are a number of school-developed Level 2 short courses. So we have Enterprise in Animation, Grow It, Cook It, Eat It, Where Am I From, Where Am I Going? Music and Drama in My Life. These short courses have been designed by schools around the country, all of them actually special schools, and they were developed for a particular group of students that obviously were attending that school. We do have access to them. If you would like a copy of those short courses, you can email me at sarah.nally@jct.ie, and I will get a copy of those short courses to you. We're hoping that they'll go up onto SchoolNet, which is where a lot of our other L2LP resources have been. We encourage teachers to share their resources from the L2LPs up there on SchoolNet. As you know, there's a new area of learning well-being, so it really focuses in on 3 subject areas in particular, so that those are PE, CSPE and SPHE. So these are actually have been written as level 3 short courses. We are in the process of creating these as level 2 short courses as well. So if special schools, or if you have students with that are following the level 2 learning programs, and you need to be covering your wellbeing hours as well, that you could engage with one of these short courses. And again, we'll be making those available to schools in a short time. So the assessment of short courses, it differs from the PLUs, from the priority learning units. The assessment of short courses is school-based. A portfolio of evidence may be gathered. It doesn't have to be gathered, but it may be gathered, because the way that the short course is assessed is in line with how a level 3 short course is assessed, and that's through a classroom-based assessment, or a CBA, which you may have heard referenced in other junior cycle areas. So features of quality are used in the assessment of the CBA that is completed as part of the short course, and descriptors of results for that CBA, the descriptor, should I say, is achieved or not achieved. Again, if a student has not achieved a CBA, it won't be on the JCPA. The JCPA will reflect then the short course CBAs that have been achieved. So just a very short slide here on why you should implement L2LPs, or the L2LPs. It is an age-appropriate structured program, so it was designed and written for students at second level age following their junior cycle. It's a program that was specifically designed for students with special educational needs. So we may have been offering JCSP or QQI or FETAC or maybe ASDAN, and now the L2LPs really are the junior cycle version of those programs for our students. You'll see when you look at the PLUs, they contain realistic and relevant learning outcomes that are they're meaningful to students, and they are skills, teaching them and supporting them in developing skills that they're going to be able to use as they move on throughout the school, or as they leave school and become members of the community. So that's the meaningful learning experiences that will be of real benefit. It promotes participation, success and achievement. So if we think back to the key message from the post-primary guidelines, that every student should be able to engage with a curriculum that's appropriate to their developmental level, the L2LPs certainly promotes that and enables us to become more inclusive schools. Students that engage with a level 2 learning program also received their junior cycle profile of achievement. So they're receiving the very same as their peers. So that was the nitty-gritty of and a very fast, I must say, I think that's probably the quickest I've ever taken anyone through what makes up the level 2 learning programs. What we would like to do now is just give you some ideas of support templates and the process that you might go through in order to embed or to implement or to introduce the level 2 learning programs in your own school context. So we are really referencing the guidelines here as the post-primary guidelines for supporting students with special educational needs, and the 3-step approach that they talk about. We're going to explore that in a little bit more detail. So those guidelines and the circular that accompany those guidelines really talk about effective inclusion. and the fact that effective inclusion of students with SEN require a whole school approach. So we're just going to take you through now a three-step approach that the guidelines introduce as the way of meeting the needs of their students with SEN. So they identify 3 steps. So number 1, identifying needs. Number 2, meeting those needs. And number 3, monitoring and recording progress. Okay, so one of the ways, and this was teased out for any of you that were at leadership and L2LP session, some of these slides will be familiar to you because they were used in that session. These are just some of the ways, some of the templates we have used within the L2LP team, templates that we've used to support schools in thinking about and considering the needs of their students and whether or not they are following or will be following a level 2 learning program. So this one here basically asks you to put the student at the centre, okay, and there with your school principal and other teachers and your SEN team and parents and the student themselves, you're going to be identifying a couple of students or a group of students, depending on your context, that you feel may benefit from the level 2 learning programs because they cannot engage with subjects at level 3. So what informs that process? So standardized test results, any psychological reports, primary passport that comes or maybe doesn't come as quickly as we'd like, but the conversations that you have with the students, primary school, the talking, the discussions with parents, that's going to inform whether or not you feel a student should be focusing in on some aspects of the level 2 or all of the level 2. So you're going to then identify and also subjects that he or she is able for as well at level 3. So you might use a template like this that shows exactly which areas a student is going to work on. So for example, a student could be in home ec, or they could be in the English classroom doing level 3. But their numeracy skills might need a little bit of support, so they're focusing in on numeracy, the numeracy PLU, but maybe he's doing that within the maths subject, in the maths mainstream classroom. So when the student maybe is accessing resource time or support time, he might then be focusing in on living in the community as a PLU. Or maybe he's doing his caring for animals short course. So it really is going to come down to the allocation of resources that you have in your schools, but really the needs of the student. And remember, another key message from those guidelines is the greatest level of need should receive the greatest level of support. But that doesn't always mean withdrawal and one-to-one. And we'll just give you some of the a variety of those teaching approaches and methodologies in a couple of slides. Basically, you're building a profile of the student and you're working out which parts of level 3 he can work towards and which areas he needs support in or she needs support in. You can document then all of this in the student support file. Special schools, I know we use IEPs as well. The student support file can be found on education.ie. The guidelines do reference this as a good document, that it's a Word document, so you can actually edit it to suit your school context, but it's a good way of working through a problem-solving process. So it's a place where you can identify concerns and you gather all of your consultation and you gather all of the evidence, if you like, behind your reasoning and your decisions to put certain supports in place for students. And you use this document to write everything down and keep a record of what it is, what support you're putting in place and why, and also it's the place where you're going to record and monitor progress. So just some of the ways that the guidelines talk about meeting the needs of students with SEN. As I said, it's not all one-to-one or withdrawal, that you could be trying a number of different, you could have in place a variety of appropriate teaching approaches and methodologies. That it could include small group tuition, scaffolded instruction, team teaching, or a combination of all of these, again depending on the needs of the student. We've included a timetable in the handout that is attached with this webinar, and that shows you, it's a real timetable, it's a student's timetable, hence all the red squiggles there, that shows what a student is doing in, it's a second year student, and it shows you which aspects of junior cycle he is engaging with based on his needs. So you can see from the key at the bottom there, the boxes in yellow, those are, and you can see the key at the bottom, level 3 subjects with scaffolded instruction and possible team teaching, depending on whether the support is there. So you can see that this student is completing art, craft and design at level 3, woodwork at level 3, and home ec at level 3. The blue boxes then are withdrawal from Irish. So he has an Irish exemption, and so he is withdrawn then, but he's working not one-to-one all the time. He's working within a small group, and within that time they're actually focusing in on caring for animals, which is the level 2 short course, and the preparing for work priority learning unit. And you can see there he has an extra session on communicating and literacy, which is another PLU. The orange then are PLUs, or priority learning units, being taught through level 3 subjects in the mainstream class with support. So that support could be small group tuition, it could be team teaching, it could be an SNA support with teacher designed tasks. So you can see there the business, he's in business studies, he's in geography, he's in maths, he's in English, science, okay, SPHE, PE, CSPE. So he's in predominantly following, he's in mainstream subjects. Okay, so what does that mean for the teachers of those subjects? This is another key message from the guidelines, and that is the role of the subject teacher. Okay, so the guidelines talk about subject teacher having primary responsibility for the progress and care of all their students in the classroom, including those with special educational needs. So what we have done is identified a journey that teachers may engage with. So students will have their L2LP journey, a teacher is going to have his or her L2LP journey as well. So if you discover or find or welcome a student with SEN into your classroom that is following a level 2 learning program, the first thing you need to do is to be able to know what the PLUs are, the priority learning units, and to know about the learning outcomes within that priority learning unit. So one of the activities we do on CPD, which we will do with any of you that we meet on CPD going forward, is to take the PLU booklet and to highlight, simply highlight the PLUs, or the PLUs and the learning outcomes that link with your subject specification. So that as you're planning for your level 3 class, your level 3 lesson, you can plan for your student that's following a level 2 learning program at the same time. Now you're going to do this and liaise with the SEN team, who may be able to talk you through other supports, practicalities that you may need to consider and put into place for these students. A good practice, we would say, is that you, as you're doing your subject department plans, for your level 3 classes, schemes of work, topics, projects, that if you have engaged with the priority learning units and their learning outcomes, you will know if you're doing a project on lakes and rivers, that might tie into a personal care learning outcome, which is about staying safe around water. And that you will make the links there between your subject specification learning outcomes and your level 2 PLU learning outcomes, so that you're teaching, you've made the link so it becomes easier then to plan for your student that's following the level 2 learning programs. The toolkit, there's a planning tool. I know some of you have registered for this and have found it useful once you've managed to get registered. It's quite a long-winded process, but you are, if you decide to use it, you're keeping the data of students, personal data of students on there, so that's why it is so I suppose back and forth in getting registered and whatnot. But the planning tool is the place where you can record what a student's doing and who he or she is doing it with. So the link is there on the slide. We will email this PowerPoint to everyone that was a participant this evening, so you'll be able to look at that link or click on that link and it will bring you to the NCCA hosted level 2 planning tool. Again, we explore this in more detail on CPD. So we're nearly there, folks. We just want to highlight another couple of pages from the guidelines. Specific sections, pages 27 to 30 and Appendix 6 within those post-primary guidelines that discuss in more detail a whole school approach and everybody's role in relation to that. And I think parental engagement and student engagement is key here on this slide, because your decision to follow the level 2 learning program with a particular student has to be done in consultation with both parties there. Okay. We have provided a number of next steps for each of these departments or groups or people within your school. We've provided leadership and L2LP sessions for school management in terms of CPD. SEN teams or SEN people have engaged with us on L2LP sections, L2LP CPD sessions as part of cluster days, and we welcome you all to that, and we look forward to seeing you again in the November clusters or in the January clusters. And teachers then, we'll engage with teachers through webinars such as these, and we'll also be providing SEN teams with presentations that they can go back into schools and deliver with their teachers. We just want to highlight PPOD. There is now a place on PPOD for you to register students. So this is for mainstream post-primary schools. Special schools, there's a different facility being put in place. If you would like to know about that, if you can email me and I'll send you the latest information that I have on that. There's lots of user guides on education.ie in relation to PPOD and junior cycle, so it's I would say for you to all click on there if that is something that you have to do. There are a number of planning resources then on jct.ie for both special schools and mainstream schools. Curriculumonline.ie, there is a level 2 learning program section. There are some sample activities, videos, and underneath the video there is a link to a lesson plan. So that's the place where you can go to get a starter, an idea of how can you begin to implement the level 2 learning programs in your classrooms. As I mentioned during the presentation, we do have a section on SchoolNet now for the level 2 learning programs. Each of the PLUs have their own little section, so there are some resources up there, and we welcome more teachers. It's not ours, it's SchoolNet, but we do welcome the teachers that we're engaging with to input and to upload their L2LP resources there on SchoolNet. If you haven't registered or you're not sure whether you've registered, we do have an L2LP session as part of our cluster day if it is something that you're interested in finding out more about. If you discuss it with your principal, just to say, look, there is a full day L2LP where we'll obviously explore everything in a lot more detail. So just to finish, this is our second to last slide, folks. The key message is really that we want to leave you with is that our aim is to be truly inclusive schools, so that's why we're considering the Level 2 learning programmes. The subject teacher has primary responsibility for the progress and care of all students, and that every student should be taught a curriculum that's appropriate to his or her developmental level. We just want to reiterate again that the greatest level of need should have access to the greatest level of support, and in doing that and working towards that, it requires a whole school approach. And this is the beginning of a journey is there twice, because you are only at the beginning of a journey, and we would like to walk with you on that journey and support you. So on that note, if you have any further questions once this webinar has closed, please do feel free to get in contact with myself, Sarah Nally, or Don Golden. Don is a full-time advisor with the Level 2 Learning Programmes team. Both of our emails are there. And of course, you can get in touch with us there through email and we will get back to you. So really, really quick. I just want to say thank you very much for engaging with this webinar. I hope you took something from it, either some new information or affirmation of practice that you're currently using in your schools, and I look forward to seeing some of you at the L2LP CPD. So thank you very much.